Also with us to give a bit more insight into these developments, we have football finance expert Kieran Maguire. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So, Kieran, I mean, he just gave us a brief lowdown there. Give us a bit more detail on associated party transaction rules, APT.
Well, the way that the rules operate is that if a football club has a commercial contract with anybody directly or indirectly connected to the owners, then that has to be assessed by what we refer to as a fair market panel as to whether if I have a contract with my son for him to wash my car and he's charging me £10,000 a year, they might say, "Oh, that looks a bit steep." So therefore, they're going to do the same in respect of all contracts between football clubs. And the definition of an associated party is much broader than the historic one, which has operated in the Premier League. It's much broader than that of UEFA, and it's much broader than that of the accounting rules. So therefore, more people potentially can be caught in the net.
Why did the Premier League then vote to implement implement them in February? It wasn't it?
Yes, I mean the Premier League confirmed in February the new rules, but this is actually sort of carrying on from rules which were introduced very shortly after Newcastle United was acquired by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. That appeared to be a knee-jerk reaction from the clubs in the Premier League who were concerned that Newcastle United would sign commercial contracts with partners and with sponsors in the Middle East, which would be at the upper end of the scale, and therefore that would give Newcastle a competitive advantage. So that was seen as effectively shutting down to a certain extent Newcastle's ability, and Manchester City were interested observers at that point. They weren't keen on the change of rules then, and they are now deciding to move a couple of years later to see how things go on a forward basis.
Why do you think then Man City take an issue with them and gone to this extreme?
Well, Manchester City feel that they have historically been disadvantaged, as have many clubs. We've had spectacular success in the Premier League, which has allowed the creation of global brands for clubs such as Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and so on. And if Manchester City want to be competitive with those clubs, they've had to go through sort of the commercial route and also with owners' assistance, as opposed to building up a global fan base first and being able to maintain that. City also feel that they've got a disadvantage being in Manchester. They will point out that ticket prices at the Etihad are much cheaper than those of the London clubs because London's a bigger tourist market. London's got a price premium and so on. And therefore, being able to compete on the commercial side of things gives them the opportunity to be at the top table. And that's where they want to be. They're not saying they want to be ahead of the other clubs, but they want to be in a competitive position, because otherwise you end up with a duopoly or just perhaps two or three clubs at the top. We've now got, of course, the big six, arguably the big seven, with Newcastle following their takeover as well.
So what does City need to prove for their complaint to be justified?
Well, City need to be able to prove that the extension of the rules under these associated parties is anti-competitive. It's preventing them from going out to the market, especially in the market in the Middle East, connected to Abu Dhabi, but also with other international parties, and to be able to go and negotiate contracts and negotiate sponsorship deals and so on. City's argument is that if the rules as they presently are stated are applied, it can take many months for something to be signed off, and therefore their potential partners will go elsewhere. They'll go to the La Liga, they'll go to the Bundesliga or Serie A, and they'll sign up deals with clubs there because City claim that they're in a competitive global market for commercial partners.
So the Premier League use an independent consultancy that sets the valuation of those deals. What are the parameters for setting these values then?
Well, it's something we sometimes refer to as comparative analysis. If I was going to sell my house or my apartment and I was trying to work out an appropriate price for it, the first thing that I'd probably do is to look to see what have houses in the same street been sold for, and then make an adjustment because this one's got a bigger bedroom, this one's south-facing garden, and so on. And that gives you sort of a rough idea. So it's part art, part science when it comes to any form of valuation. And it is a very, very delicate and tricky topic, because how do you measure the value of a unique asset? And Manchester City is as unique as Manchester United, as Liverpool, and so on. And this makes trying to get an accurate valuation difficult, but trying to get a consensus price perhaps is slightly easier.
So if City lose this legal battle, could that open the door once again, do you think, to an idea of a European Super League?
Well, Manchester City, by all accounts, were very reluctant partners as far as the six clubs that chose initially to join the Super League was concerned. If, however, they lose the case and they feel that their position in the Premier League has been disadvantaged to such an extent that they might look at other alternatives. I mean, that's a business decision to make. There's no indication, however, from anybody at City that it's a route that they would consider. They were one of the first clubs to drop out of the Super League when it began to crumble, when it was first announced a couple of years ago.
Kieran, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.